Okay, now Indian industrialists, they don't seem to be very happy with the recent policy moves or maybe the inaction around policy by the government. We caught up with several Indian industrialists and asked them for their opinion, and my colleague Shweta Rajpal Kohli had a chat with them.
Mr. Bajaj, the last 1 year, we've seen something absolutely unprecedented. Corporate leaders standing up and talking against the government. Why are we seeing the industry being so critical? It's never happened in the past.
As you said, if it didn't happen before, because they didn't have spine before. So they found their spine. That's one. Second, they had reasons to.
Right.
Which I'm sure all the three will disagree with me. This is a different matter, what you should say and what you should not say, and self-fulfilling prophecy, and don't be negative. I agree with all that.
Right.
But on the other hand, you can't lie. You have to tell the truth, and you have to accept reality. But before I go further, I'm delighted to come to Davos, as usual, for many, many years, because everybody here is crying. We are laughing. My company has grown in the last 7-8 years by 15% or 20% every year. We make more profit than any other auto company in India.
So when we're on a global platform, we should actually feel delighted, because we're crying about growth slipping from the expected 9%
9 to 7,
7.5
maybe.
But we're still way better than the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sathya, we know that as the minister, you have to do a very, very tough task of defending the government when the industry is actually attacking the government. We have seen government bashing being the flavor of the season.
Well, I don't agree with that notion, Shweta, because I think you have to see a government in its continuity. And I think if you look at the track record over the last year and a half, there has a lot of policy-making decisions that have been taken. Whether you look at the national manufacturing policy, the government, in terms of my ministry, is spearheading the whole DMIDC corridor program, which is a $90 billion infrastructure program connecting Bombay and Delhi. Across the board, our annual quarterly reviews of the foreign trade policy, tweaking it to incentivize it.
Right.
And if you look at the numbers, whether you look at FDI numbers coming into India, which today are close to about $22 billion, up from $14 billion for the same period, we're almost up 64%.
It's a gap that needs to be bridged almost immediately, because the industry has been very worried about the way the government has been going about a number of things.
There have been a few issues. For example, I think the rate hikes perhaps should have stopped before the last couple of rate hikes, because inflationary expectations were already coming down.
But the government will say that's the RBI. Why blame us for it?
No, sure. But I mean, we're talking of the government in its entirety, including the RBI.
Right.
The rupee was allowed to depreciate far too much.
Right.
It was almost given a free hand. Ultimately, both the government and the Reserve Bank very clearly did mention that they would like the rupee to be reasonably priced. Now today, for example, the rupee has come back up to 49.70.
Right.
So I think some of the things could have been handled better.
Well, I think that reforms have not come to a standstill, but I think tier 2 reforms, which should have happened, logically have not happened.
Right.
Part of it is because of politics, as you just said. Part of it is because of the entire structural issues that we face in terms of being a federal nation state, where there are many, many areas which are very imperative for reforms, which are on the concurrent list.
Right.
Politics will play a definite part, because you've seen many parties advocating certain reforms but opposing them when they're in the opposition for the sake of opposition.
Right.
Hypothetically, if the state elections do throw up sort of great results for the ruling coalition, I think there could be a slight shift in the sense of their dependence on some of the allies would lessen to some extent, and if they do find new allies through this process, then you could see some of the tier 2 reforms actually move forward.
Okay, time for us to head into a short break, but